For the longest time, Axe PvP was mainly dominated by defensive playstyles, the most notable defensive players being Madlog and Adrenaline, both of which I covered in my previous video. Throughout the course of this period, the community would make small incremental improvements, but it seemed like the skill cap had been reached. However, when the community least expected it, a game-breaking strategy was developed called the stun. We'll talk more about that later. Because of this new strategy, new top players would arise, but before we get to know their names and their story, we need to go back in time to February of 2021, when the community called the Minecraft NoLifes was created. Although it was relatively small in size, the Minecraft NoLifes community was one of the biggest Axe PvP communities out there. Despite being in the Axe PvP scene for a while up until this point, the Minecraft NoLifes players never really achieved a top player position. Some were really good, but never regarded as the best. However, that all changed in the summer of 2021. That's when 3 players from the NoLifes community reached the #1 spot. And now that you know some of their history, let's get to know how they got there. Superpig was a fairly known member of the community before he rose to the top. If you look back on some old tier lists, you might be able to spot his name somewhere. He first started PvPing in September of 2020, and like almost every other top player before him, he got better by simply dueling other top players, and slowly but surely, he would climb the ranks of the tier list. However, it wouldn't be until late summer of 2021 where he would achieve the #1 spot. He achieved this feat through his incredible game sense, knowing when to switch from offensive to defensive. He also had a special backstab that was pretty much unblockable, which is now known as the Superpig backstab. His ability to master his fundamental playstyle allowed him to dominate other players. He was also pretty well known throughout the community as the second person to record beating Dream in an Axe 1v1, which was an incredible feat at the time. Superpig's reign over this PvP game mode was clear. He had the defense, the offense, and the skills to be regarded as #1. But, as you might have guessed, there was another player that would rise to the top by his side. Around the same time as Superpig's grind to #1, another member of the NoLifes community would start to become crazy good. He would go on to utilize never seen before strategies and become infamous in Axe PvP. For those who don't already know his name, this is the story of Swit. Like most players did, Swit would just play Axe duels with random people every day. That was until he eventually met some skilled players from the NoLifes community, such as people like Superpig and God's Middle Toe and so on. From then on, he would be constantly grinding Axe PvP with his new friends, and this seemed to work out well for him. But there was a problem. The strategies during this time were extremely limited. You could backstab, block backstabs, insta-shield, P-crit, and that was about it. And there were already players who were exceptional at those skills. But that's where Swit comes in. He would go on to pioneer a new era of Axe PvP, with strategies that are used extensively to this day. This was the era of stunning. Stuns, a term created by Swit, were a type of shield disable techniques that gave your opponents a lot of vertical knockback. This had a number of advantages. It made it harder for your opponents to auto-hit you, and if performed correctly, can set you up for a free crit on your opponent. He would also go on to invent the trick crit, which is a method of escaping P-crit chains by taking an extra jump to distance yourself from your opponent while you crit them. Today, this method is known as the sham. At the time, these strategies were unfathomable. I mean, imagine experiencing this when this was the meta. Because of the development of these new strategies, Swit was able to climb to the top extremely quickly, and made his mark as the greatest Axe PvPer of his time. But there's more. Swit's success overshadowed a lot of the other top players, due to his skill and also his large popularity. Perhaps one of the most underrated players in Axe PvP as a top player was Vivikai. Let's get to know more about him. Vivikai started around late December of 2020, and like Swit, he became close to the NoLifes players and just kept grinding axe. One notable thing about Vivikai was that he had one of the most distinctive playstyles in the community. His playstyle mainly revolved around forcing P-crit chains, using the knockback from his opponent's hit to crit them back. He would later go on to utilize stuns more often, which only made him more overpowered. Although Vivikai never officially tested for a number 1 spot, most old gen players would agree he was the best in the world at some point during late summer of 2021. The 3 players I mentioned were absolutely dominating the axe PvP scene, so that raises the question, where are they now? Well, they've all sort of moved on to UHC, but let's look back on their axe days. It was no coincidence that these 3 players got so good at the same time. They played each other and improved together. The way Vivikai put it, I became really good late summer of 2021. That's when Swit, Pig, and I went on a 3-day trading arc of non-stop duels to get better. These 3 have been involved in axe PvP's biggest moments, such as the start of the new era of axe PvP. This era would lead to the emergence of a new player, but that's for another video. Although these 3 players are not as involved in axe anymore, we can truly appreciate the impact and legacy they've left on this community. This was axe PvP history, and now you know the story of the NoLifes.